The title of this little chat is The Vanishing Breed with a question mark. Tom Brokaw's recent book, The Greatest Generation, states that World War II vets are now in their 80s and 90s and are dying at the rate of over 1,100 every day. We are a vanishing breed. However, I say we may be a vanishing breed, but I assure you our footprints remain and they cannot be erased. Hello, my name is Ted Foote. Please understand and keep in your mind that we are talking some 65 years back, which in reality is another place and another time. I enlisted in the Army Air Corps in 1940 and was discharged on March 26, 1946. I was older than the average enlistee because I had graduated from Duke University and had worked in the operations branch of the commercial airlines, namely TWA and American Airlines. I use this as only background information. Initially, I was teaching flying cadets how to fly blind in a flight simulator. Blind flying is no visual reference to the ground, listening to radio signals, and reading and believing the instrument panel and responding to what it tells you up in front of you. I like to believe that a few of my cadets that I taught owe me a big cup of coffee, 2 creams and 4 sugars, and a big thank you, Sergeant, for helping them acquire the necessary skills for flying blind, because it probably saved their skin. Since the Air Force, Army Air Corp, would not accept anyone who wore glasses for pilot training, I chose to go to Officer Candidate School for administrative work. After 3 months of intensive training, I graduated on August 5th, 1942, Miami Beach, Florida, in the class of 42C. We were then referred to as shave tails, and by an act of Congress, I became an officer and a gentleman. My greatest claim to fame came here in the class of 42C as I was a classmate of the movie star, Mr. Clark Gable of Gone with the Wind fame. Now I was locked into administrative work for the duration of the war. After a series of stateside airport assignments, including Coupland Boys schools for further intensified training, I was, in very early 1944, ordered overseas to the headquarters of the CBI Theater of Operations in New Delhi, India. When I returned stateside in December of 1945, I had the unique experience of meeting and holding our daughter, Suzanne, for the very first time. Sue is now 60 years young and lives with her husband and Dale in Old Town, Maine. Back again to my military experience. CBI stands for the China, Burma, India Theater of Operations. In 1937, Japan invaded China and took Manchuria, and then continued their conquest of eastern China down the Pacific coast, taking in Hong Kong and Shanghai and so on, and pushed the Chinese backward westward into the extreme landlocked western part of China, leaving no land route to get supplies to them. Then the fall of Rangoon in Burma, the water route was cut and they were completely isolated. So we started a military type air operation, flying supplies and equipment over the eastern end of the Himalaya Mountains from India to the Kunming area of western China. It was dubbed the Hump. To clear the highest peak, Fort Hertz, you had to go over 17,000 feet, just over 17,000. The best plane we had at the time was a converted cargo passenger plane. It was used by every airline in the United States. Can you believe that? Every airline in the United States in 1930 used the same airplane, the DC-3, 21 passenger. Converted to cargo is called a C47. This capacity for cargo is about 2 tons, which is a type of operation that was like hauling coal to Newcastle in a small truck and not making very much headway. We quickly converted the B-24, a 4-engine heavy bomber, and called it the C87, and a special 2-engine plane came online that had a large cargo capacity called the C46. The difference between the C46 and C87 and the DC-3 was that they had supercharged engines, which means they can go up to 25,000, 30,000 feet any day of the week. We ran this airline on an operation schedule on a 24/7 basis and flew sometimes when the birds were walking. And I can tell you could look out in the fog sometimes, you almost see a bird there shaking his head, wondering what the crazy fool's doing. This was a multi-based operation both in India and China. Suddenly, in August of 1945, the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, and the war with Japan came to an abrupt end. It took many months to pick up and pack and ship everybody and equipment home. The 5 memorable years that were taken out of my prime years of my life, it was this time in my life. Looking back over some 65 years now, I am so proud to have been enlisted when my country needed me, and it was a pleasure to honor and an honor to serve in the Army Air Force, thus joining the ranks of the many who make up the greatest generation. This message was written by Captain Ted Foote, Army Air Force retired, and I approve his message. May God continue to bless America.